so much for having me to this wonderful place, this wonderful country. I'm sure you're all getting excited for food. That'll be shortly, I promise. I'll go through this in lightning speed. But I thought a lot about good home before coming here today, and how I, as an American and as somebody from a wealthy place in America, San Francisco is where I call home now, was going to try to solve this existential question of what makes a good home, and how I could define that for this audience in particular. And so I really looked around to understand what home is. It's a very kind of existential question almost. It's the kind of one where you'd just say, well, what is life, you know? It evolves in so many different forms. Home is where your heart is. We've heard that before. Home is where pants aren't. Sometimes home is a person. Home is a place. Home is not a place, it's a feeling. And home is where our story begins. Again, for me to come from a place like this is San Francisco, and yet have such diversity of home types around the world, and come to define this question of what makes a good home. Whether it's a farm in Thailand, or a villa in Greece, an apartment building in Russia, an old colonial home on the lake, a small, tiny apartment living situation, or the newest trend now in the United States, which is mobile home living, or tiny mobile home living. But the question of whether a good home evolves as a result of size or sophistication level of the home is it's a complex question that we've actually been trying to answer for a while. And the research really comes down to the idea that homes necessarily aren't made up, or the happiness associated with a home isn't necessarily made up of the things within it. It really comes down to a couple of really key things around the communities in which we operate in, the work that we do, and the passions that we share in the work that we do, and our ability to, have a good lifestyle where we can contribute something to society and help out. And what's interesting really about where the happiness associated with our lifestyles is derived is it actually doesn't necessarily have a relationship with income or with wealth or your ability to buy a good home or a fancy home, right? The diminishing returns associated with life satisfaction and home satisfaction, it's a diminishing return curve. So while it seems as though in many parts of our life we're striving for these bigger, better things associated with our homes, bigger televisions, fancier apartments, the higher floors on on condo buildings, right? The fact is that that's not always the case. That's not actually in the data. And you may be wondering, wow, what the hell am I doing up here talking about this, about my understanding of what a good home is? Well, I studied real estate economics in college, and real estate finance. And I didn't necessarily believe that could be used for good. I honestly, my studies led me to believe that those worlds were corrupt and weren't good places. So I went and I built this home with my father. And building a home with somebody else is it's an incredible experience. At least it was for me. It was both a bonding experience. It was something that I was able to come away with saying, wow, that's something that I created that was really incredible. And what really happened as a result of this, I got dirty, as you can see. What came of this really was a change for me in my understanding of what the relationship to humans and to homes is. And it all happened as a result of this. This was the 30-yard dumpster that sat outside of our house, and every time I'd sit there and I would slice off the end of a piece of wood, or I would cut something, or I'd unwrap something, I'd have to throw the waste into the bin here. And what I had remembered from my studies of economics was that waste is really just an inefficiency in a process. You have inputs coming in one end, and you have an output out the other end. But anything that's lost in between, as you've seen from several presenters up here, is an inefficiency, and it provides us with a real opportunity. And what I thought about was, geez, what could we do with that opportunity? I had just finished building this home. I had this understanding that there was this relationship between placemaking and creating something, and yet I saw an opportunity in the inefficiencies that are in our process. So what I did is I moved from Connecticut out to San Francisco and started a company. And that company now creates places for people where we live, work, and play. We create healthy, regenerative, sustainable places that often are more valuable. And here's a photo of our family here. We get the privilege of working in something that I would consider a good home. While it's not traditional sense of the word home, where we go to sleep or where we have family, right? Our family comes to work here every day, and it's got an incredible amount of natural light and biophilia. The green wall there is a great sense of bringing the outside into the space. We have dynamic sensors that tell us what's happening in that place and respond to our needs. But that's not every place in the world. And unfortunately, we are, as a people, urbanizing. We're densifying and urbanizing. And we often don't have the ability, when we're doing that, to create great places. So that's really what our company focuses on. We build to nourish, build to thrive, and we build to optimize. And I want to go through those three topics with you today. So what does build to nourish mean for us? In the US in particular, there is a health epidemic. And that health epidemic looks basically from the stats like we spend a very small fraction on proactive health management and a ton of money on reactive health management, right? It's the simple, I'll just take a pill for solving for that thing as opposed to taking care of yourself. So when we look to create spaces, we look to solve for some of that, right? A place where home can be a place where it provides proactive health and helps solve for the societal trends that have come over us these days. And in the US, we call this wellness, or the health and wellness space, or building wellness. There's a variety of institutions out there, including Delos and the US Green Building Council, that are focused on creating wellness. And when wellness is done right, it looks a lot like this. This is called Garden Village. This is now the home to a couple hundred students of the University of Berkeley. When this developer came to us, they said, well, we just want to develop this housing. We have this site. We're really anxious to just get it done. We're worried about the economics. We're worried about the housing cycle. And we said, all right, sounds good. Let's talk through your problems, right? Talking through the problems led to them creating the first rooftop agricultural system that we have in the Bay Area. Now, this is residential housing that's now occupied by students who get to watch kale grow on the side of their building, right? Or pluck a tomato for dinner just by simply walking outside. This project won the AIA Innovation of the Year Award in the United States. The AIA is the American Institution of Architects. How would you like to live in this project? Anyone know what this is? Raise your hand if you do. No? One? This is a new, very high-rise or a high-rise apartment building in Milan that the Heinz Corporation developed. I think there's over 7,000 trees in the building. 7,000 trees in a vertical environment. right? Take that evolution where we came from of living within nature and with nature, this trend towards densification and urbanization in our cities, right? And look at what we can create. So the second topic is build to thrive. What does building to thrive mean? Well, for us, we see as we urbanize and as we continue to use these things way too often in our lives, right? We're missing out on a piece of community. We've had a little bit of a loss in community. We're all just moving so fast, we forget to interact with each other, right? So there's a couple really interesting groups that we're working with out there. One is called Roam, another is called Outsite. And what these companies are doing is they're solving for that community issue. In the US, we call it group housing or co-living. But in order to create a wonderful place to live and to thrive, these groups are organizing people in a situation where they live together. No different than a dormitory if you've been to a college or a university or a schooling situation. These are basically residential dormitory style living where people live together. They share resources, they share kitchens, they share bathrooms, and they actually get to really know people at a very deep level. And it's very much the same as any other residential project, right? It's very similar to probably where many of us lives, except it really brings together that community. And with our stats here in the US, 40% of the workforce will be freelance, and 90% of the millennial generation, which will now be our newest, biggest generation, want flexibility and that ability to live. They're spending upwards of 50% of all of their income on housing. That doesn't allow for much more outside of that. That doesn't allow us to save and have a good life and be able to have a good home. But what these solve for is by living together, we can save money, we can save resources, we can conserve a little. And the last thing we're doing is we're working with clients who have significant ambitions to create really resource conservative places to live, where you can feel really strongly about the place where you're having your lifestyle. You can live in an environmentally conscious place where you know that everything was curated and created specifically to solve for some of the greatest environmental and social challenges of our day. And in that previous project, let me go back here real quickly. In this previous project right here, this was also a design competition that our firm won, where we designed a net zero community where 500 or 600 people could live. And our attempt was to do it so that we used no energy, that our carbon was neutral over a short period of time, over a 20-year period of time, right? So all of the energy that went in, the people driving to the site, the wood that we used, the steel, all of that carbon was accounted for, and then within a reasonably short period of time, that we would be a regenerative building. This project also won a design competition. The way that we do this, though, is in this very digital world. And what the digital world has done for us is it's really given us the ability to optimize the resources we use so that we can live in a place where we can understand and know that there isn't a wasteful place to be. What it ends up looking like is that these digital files, these massive digital files that we can do now, right, get sent off into a manufacturing situation or a printing situation and can create, with limited waste, with limited people coming to the site, driving cars, missions, whatnot, right, places where we can literally take a manufactured unit, a residential home, place, whatever, and drop it in place and create homes in a matter of days and weeks. And the last thing I'll leave you with is the progression that this has taken over the last 10 years. So I started relatively early in the presentation with talking about the home that I built with my father. That was an absolutely incredible experience, which led me to be able to be on stage here with you. Fast forward 10 years. This is my definition of a good home. This is a home that was literally, my wife and I purchased on the internet. This home we purchased as a result of a digital file on the internet, a net zero, carbon neutral home that doesn't use any energy from the grid whatsoever and is filled with sustainable materials and healthy materials so we can occupy the home. This home is going to be the place that I call home, hopefully for myself and my generation and my kids over the next period of time. Had I never had that ability to understand and to even think about the idea of what a good home could be, it never would have led me down that path. And I think that the thing that I find so amazing is our abilities to forecast what we think a better world will be, and our ability to take marked steps to get there, right? When I graduated school, all I knew was numbers. All I knew was business finance. All I knew was people trading all the time and making lots of money and whatnot, right? But what changed about that was my ability and our ability collectively to understand what good means and what it could mean for us, both personally in our home lifestyle, within our work, and within our community. And you take that 10-year period in my lifestyle, and now we get to live in an actual good home. Thank you.